And now my thing's not going full screen. All right, here we go. Here we are today with North American champion player Zykon. Thank you for sharing some time with us.
No problem.
So I see you tend to play a lot of Warlock. Even right now, you have 3 Warlock decks up. What about Warlock suits your style?
I think that the Warlock's hero ability is probably the best hero ability in the game. So, just the ability to be able to draw cards um, more than the other players is something that's really strong. Um, and that combined with the best possible aggro creatures in the game make it a really strong aggro deck. And one of the things I like about it the best is that it's because of that draw ability, you can make sure that it's going to be really consistent. It's kind of hard to get a bad draw and not be able to recover from it. Whereas other classes, if you get a really bad starting hand and then you mulligan and you get really bad cards again, you're kind of just screwed because you don't have the good card draw like you do early on in the game with Warlock. So that's the reason I like it the best.
So with other card game out there's like Magic, what about Hearthstone brought you in?
I played Magic for like 13 years, ever since I was 8 years old up until I was like 21. And um, I got competitive whenever I was in high school, and the sheer cost of Magic the Gathering on the competitive side of things, for constructed at least, is really, really expensive. And I always loved Magic. It was like my first true game that I was ever competitive at, and um, I never stopped wanting to play it, but because of the financial parts of it, I just couldn't continue. So whenever Hearthstone came out and it was online, which is a big thing for me because I have a family and I work a full time job, so that makes it easier for me to just hop on whenever I want to and play quickly. And then if I can just get in a game or two, um, I can still play competitive games. I don't have to sit down for a 4 to 5 hour tournament if I don't want to. And that combined with the free to play aspect, making it really cheap to get in on the ground floor. Um, and like even if you don't want to take the time to grind out the collection, it's still very, very cheap compared to Magic the Gathering. So those two things combined with Blizzard's a good video game publisher as well, so I have a feeling that they will take the game in a good direction. I'm not too worried about how things are going to go forward. I know that it will stay and continue to flourish over the next few years, so I'm not worried about dumping a ton of money into this game and then it just all of a sudden going away. So those three or four things are probably what made it the most intriguing for me.
Now, advice to a new player, how would you say about them to get started and or be able to get up in ranks, since there are some people who argue this isn't a free-to-play game, it's cost prohibitive, and if you don't have the money, you're just not going to go anywhere.
Well, um, there are a lot of people that say free to play that it's not free to play, and I've seen that, and it really frustrates me because, um, and then they'll say that it's pay to win, but the definition of a pay to win game is like, um, the game actually puts content behind a money wall. There's no way for you to get stuff that you're required to have to be better at the game without paying money. And this is not like that because eventually, throughout the grind, you will be able to get everything that anybody that pays money will be able to get. Now, like I said, it's a huge grind. It'll take a lot longer for you to do it free to play, but you can still get there. And some of the most competitive decks right now are actually really cheap, only requiring like 1 or 2 legendaries. So, um, if the best way to start and get a collection going and being able to make sure that you're on your right path without having to spend any money is, of course, you want to do all of the leveling of the classes. Make sure you get all the classes and level them to level 10 so you get the extra bonus gold for getting everything to 10. And then you want to save up about 600 to 800 gold before you decide to play arena. Even before you decide to play the free arena, because that way you have a pretty good idea of, like at least the free cards that you're getting. You're understanding the game. You know all the mechanics for what you have at the moment. And then the best thing is to search online, like different resources like Hearthstone.2p.com, also iHearthU.com. All these great websites that pretty much have beginner guides for ways to do arena. Also watch streams. Some popular streamers that do arena are Trump and Crip. Whenever they're going through their picking process, they usually explain in detail why they're picking something over another, and they'll tell you the more powerful classes at the time and what they're trying to do throughout the process. But you want to make sure, ideally, that you're really prepared for arena, because arena is your best bet at farming. Really good in this game. So if you get really good at arena, you want to try to get at least 7 to 8 wins. Even if you're not very good at it, especially when you're starting, you're not going to get that high. As long as, I believe the math is, as long as you're getting at least 2 wins, you're still coming out even, because you're pretty much paying 50 gold for whatever else is in your winning bonus. So it's always advisable to keep playing arena, because you're also investing in yourself getting better at arena too. And if you can start to be a superstar and get to 7 or 8 wins constantly, that's when you're really going to be able to grind out your collection quickly. Most good players can play 8+ win arenas within like a 2-hour time span. So if you think about that, if you want to, depending on how hardcore you want to get, you can start grinding out like at least 3 to 4 packs a day. And once you get up to that speed, it would take you like a month or 2 months time to be able to build your first competitive deck with a lot, even have a few legendaries and stuff.
Now, can
And
you take us
I think,
through one of your current decks and then show us it in action?
yeah, sure. Let's see. So we'll go to the deck editor here. So this is one of my decks. It's called Game Blouses, just because it's an old play off of Dave Chappelle's show. Whenever he was playing, I think it was Prince in a basketball game. At the end of the game, he says Game Blouses, and it's just a joke between me and a bunch of my friends. But the deck is basically revolved around, like I was talking about earlier, the ability to have strong, low casting cost creatures that you can cast early in the game and try to gain a board control. And board control is just simply the aspect of trying to keep your creatures on the aggressive part. You don't want to be on the defensive, because that's really important in Hearthstone. Once you're on the defensive, you're usually in a bad state. So if you can be the aggressor, even in a controlling aggressive matchup, if you're the aggressor, you're usually winning the game. So Warlock actually has some of the best cards in the game for that, and we'll just go through them really quick. The Flame Imp is a 1 casting cost 3/2. Um, and most new players will look and say, "Oh, well, that deals 3 damage to my hero. I don't want to do that. Why would I want to die? Because I only have 30 life. That's taking away a tenth of my health." Well, what you're gaining though is that substantial board control for 1 mana. If you look at all the other cards in the game, uh, you're not going to find a better one drop for the cost of or for that's a 3/2. So that's what you gain there, and you want to use your health as a resource, and that's something that you really have to understand before you start playing Warlock because you're going to be doing a lot of damage to yourself. A lot of times you're going to be life tapping to draw cards, and that's just something that's a part of playing Warlock. You have to not so much worry about your life until you get to a critical point, and more worry about keeping board advantage and keeping card advantage. Um, so there's the Flame Imp. The Void Walker is a 1/3. All the one casting cost 1/3s are really good in the game. Void Walker is good because it protects your other creatures, and it's a cheap taunt card. Blood Imp is a 1/1, and the main thing about it is it gives your other minions +1 health. Anything that gives any other creatures +1 health is generally really good. Um, Point to where Blizzard actually keeps an eye on all of these cards because it can be potentially broken, and there's a lot of talk in the competitive community right now that Blood Imp is actually a little bit more on the overpowered side, so a lot of people are calling for it to get nerfed, but it's really hard to change this card because of you have to change a whole digit of something,
Not to mention, if you
and
were to change Blood Imp and let's say not make it stealth, then it's relatively worthless. So I can't
yeah,
imagine a huge change to Blood Imp.
yeah, me as well. Yeah, like the only thing I could see is maybe um, making a making it a 2 casting cost 2/2 that still has the same ability, and you're like, well, it's still really good. Well, the main thing is that Blood Imp is not very good on its own. It The added ability is that it adds the health to the other creatures, and by making it 2 health, it's kind of jams up your early game, or not 2 health, but 2 casting costs. Um, so that is um, my suggestion. If they decide to do something with it, maybe make it cost an additional mana and change it to a 2/2. Even though it'll be a stronger creature, maybe it'll jam up the early game of the Warlock and it won't let them be so aggressive. But that could potentially be outrageous as well. I would have to play test it to see if it's any good or not. Um, Argent Squire is a 1/1 for one with Divine Shield. Um, and it's just really good because you can trade with stuff with 2 toughness by hitting it once and then hitting it again without the Divine Shield. You can make some really good plays with any kind of boosters. And by boosters, I mean creatures that make the attack or health of it better with the Divine Shield. One of the strongest plays in the game is to play turn 1 Argent Squire, turn 2 coin the Shattered Sun Cleric and make it a 2/2, and then attack into a creature with 2 toughness. That really swings the game in your favor. Um, on a game that usually, like if you're on the coin, you're already on the back foot usually. So yeah, we got a lot of one casting cost creatures. The 2 imps and the Voidwalker are also demons, which are pumpable by Demon Fire. And usually 2 for 2/2 is not very good, but the added ability of being able to deal 2 damage to another minion um, is really good in this deck, and I'll go into that while we're playing games and stuff. Blood Mage Thanos is really strong for several reasons. We're using Demon Fire to deal damage. Mortal Coil can also be buffed with the spell damage, and then also Soulfires as well. Um, Knife Juggler is one of those staple 2 casting cost creatures for any aggro deck. It allows you to power through 1 toughness creatures and not even have to attack them if you get lucky on the knives. And I think personally it's one of the most fun cards in the game. It can be really frustrating if you're on the other end of it, but sometimes it's so frustrating that it's hilarious.
No,
Like I've actually.
and also with the fact
I'm
that you
sorry.
have a
Go
lot
ahead.
of one-dropping creatures, you can sometimes drop 2, 3 creatures and just be kniving the entire board, which is just a fun day.
Yeah. Um, I've actually played 2 games before where the opponent has had Knife Juggler, and I played Leroy Jenkins, and the Knife Juggler killed my Leroy Jenkins on 1 turn, or 1 game. And then on another game, the Knife Juggler, I was at 2 health. The Knife Juggler killed me when I was getting ready to kill them with Leroy Jenkins. It dealt 2 damage to my face. So, like, it's so infuriating, but it's so funny that you just can't help but laugh. You don't even get mad because it's so funny. Then we run the normal suite of cantrip creatures, and by cantrip creatures, I mean they're usually not very strong cards by themselves, but the ability to draw a card whenever you play them or whenever they die is really good. Because it helps you find answers to problems that you can't solve currently. The reason we only play 1 lead hoarder is because the 1 toughness is really easy to deal with for a lot of classes and a lot of cards. So I like the novice engineer here better. Um, then we run some staple, really strong cards like Shattered Sun Cleric, Dark Iron Dwarf, and Defender of Argus. And let's see, Sylvanas Windrunner is probably this current patch. It's probably the strongest card in the game right now, just because you can be on the back foot, have no creatures on the board. You play Sylvanas, and your opponent has to completely, I mean, like 80% of the time, completely change what they're doing. Usually, they either have to rush you down and decide, okay, I'm just going to lose a lot of creatures to Sylvanas, and I hope to rush them down before she makes the game swing in my opponent's favor. Or they have to sacrifice like at least 2, maybe even 3 cards just to kill her. So she's really good. And then the Black Knight is really a situational card, but because of the current mana meta with a lot of I'm
Kind of
sorry if you can
larger.
hear that. It's an
Yeah.
airplane flying over me. Um, but it's currently really good in this meta game because there's a lot of taunts out there, especially for druids. And with Defender of Argus giving creatures taunt all the time, it's just a really good card. Uh, Generally, whenever you have it, um, there's a good chance that your opponent has a taunt. Um, so those are the cards that you use to control the game. That and also Mortal Coil that I didn't explain earlier, which helps you do that last bit of damage to something and continue to draw for a cheap casting cost, which is really good. But then there's also this aspect of this deck that at a certain point of the game, when you get your opponent to a certain life total where you're like, I think that I just don't even care about board control anymore. I'm pretty sure that I can just rush them down completely. Then you go into this crazy burst mode that's also loaded with really low casting cost cards. Um, Soulfire, undoubtedly one of the best cards in the game right now. For free casting costs, the only thing you have to do is discard a random card in your hand. It's important to note that if you don't have any cards, you don't have to discard anything, and you can still cast it. And it says deal 4 damage, so you can deal that to anything. You can deal it to your opponent. You can kill a creature that's in your path. Um, or you can even, like, I've also used it to kill my own Sylvanas sometimes to gain control of their creature depending on how good it is. Um, but it's important to note that if you are discarding a card, realize that you are 2 for 1ing for whatever you're killing if you have another card in your hand. So look at the potential cards in your hand that could be discarded. Make sure that it's worth what you're doing. If you can just 1-for-1 trade with it, usually it's better to do that and try to save this for like burst later on in the game. Power Overwhelming is another cheap card that allows you to deal 4 damage. Let's see.
And it also synergizes quite well with Sylvanas because you can Sylvanas and throw that same turn, and if you have to grab something, grab it. Although it has been known to bug at times.
Well, no, Sylvanas doesn't actually bug. There's a lot of intricacies of the way she interacts with other cards.
The other day, I power overwhelm my Sylvanas to grab someone's Ysera, and then instead of the Ysera coming to my hand and being playable, it kind of like it came to my side of the board, but then it just like hovered and did nothing, and it never actually landed on the board. So that's where my it can bug proviso comes from.
That's the first time I've ever heard of that. I would almost say that that's more of like a game side bug. I don't think it's more on Sylvanas' side because you did say it came to your side. You just couldn't do anything with it, right?
Yeah, it was just so sad. I'm like, no! I thought I had won the game at that moment, and then it ended up just floating.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really Sylvanas, like, there's so many things to her. The death rattles in the game are actually tiered to where, like, Sylvanas usually triggers before any other death rattle. So, like, if you're Sylvanas, here, let me pull her up so you guys can see her. If your Sylvanas is a 5/2, and you attack a 2/3 Harvest Golem on your opponent's side, and that's the only 2 creatures in play. So both of them die at the same time. However, Sylvanas' Death Rattle will activate first when there's no creature on the board, so you will not get anything, and then the opponent's 2/1 reanimated golem will appear on the table. And the same thing with a lot of other death rattles like Cairn Bloodhoof and stuff like that. So I thought that was really interesting.
Oh, I also think it's important to note that if someone kills your Sylvanas with their Sylvanas triggers first to grab something on your side, but then your Sylvanas will grab back. So it pays to not attack into it if you can avoid it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Usually, this is also really good too with stuff like your cantrip minions. Excuse me. Cards that you really don't expect to do much, and you don't really care if they do a lot for you in the game. So, like, for instance, using Power Overwhelming on a Novice Engineer to get through a 5 toughness taunt creature is a really good play, because that way you're sacrificing something that's not very important to your game plan. Mainly it's just there to dig through your deck. And that's just one of the other additional things. You can also Power Overwhelming something and then Shadow Flame, which is a really good play. I don't know how many times that I've used Leroy Jenkins Power Overwhelming attack for 10 and then just Shadow Flame the board afterward. So that completely wipes the board, like, or if your opponent has like the 5/10 taunts for the Druid, the Ancient of Wars, you can, like, I've had somebody have 2 of those out on me, and I done that combo without attacking with Leroy, and just wiped out both of those. So Shadow Flame is one of your other ways to gain board advantage if you're on the back foot. And you can do that with a lot of different interactions that comes with playing the deck, though. It's not something that you can say, oh, well, you always want to do it in this situation. You really have to see where you're at and then go from there.
All right, so you're ready to grant us a couple of games so we can see us in action, and maybe you can talk us through some of your plays, and we can then put this up and share it with the fans.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay. So just for reference, if anybody looks at this video in the past, we're currently in test season test season 1. Currently on the edge of getting ready to do test season 2.
Well, thank you, Zykon. You're right. I think everyone is seeing it right now because they should. Not just.
Okay. So this is a really good hand. Mortal Coil is the questionable pick because
Remember,
a lot
we're
of
delayed.
the
We're delayed
rogues.
like 15 seconds in the stream, so if you can go just a little slower.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Now we see your hand.
Okay. So this is a really good hand. You always want Flame Imp to start. We're on the play too, so this is really good. Mortal Coil is kind of situational in this spot, and we would rather have a 2-pick, a 2 casting cost creature, so we're going to try to get something better for that. And Blood Imp is also really good as well to keep your creatures above the threshold of what the rogue can do with damage.
Yeah, we just gotta hope that rogue doesn't have a backstab.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can't. People say, well, let's try to play around backstab and stuff like that. And I don't necessarily think that you should always be trying to play around cards like backstab, because they might not have something to combo after the fact.
No, you don't
And usually, if they just kill your creature with backstab on turn 1 and they don't do something after that, that's kind of weak for them, actually.
Oh wow, and it looks like right now they're not really playing anything. They're not moving any cards, so no threat of a leopard gnome or something else. Oh, now they apparently just woke up.
Yes. Yeah, so they actually coin into the device ringleader.
Oh man, the strongest opening that you could face. Ouch.
Yeah. The only thing that could have been worse was if they backstabbed my 3/2 in the same turn.
Yes, that would be pretty bad.
The good thing here, though, is that we can just continue on. We're still in a good board position here. So I don't know if you guys have caught up to my turn, but it looks like the best option is to use the Blood Imp to buff my guy up to a 3/3 and attack in. The reason, and I attacked the rogue into the face.
Wow.
The reason I didn't attack either the 2/2 or the 2/1 was because they're on 2 mana next turn. They've already used their coin, so I'm not worried about either of these guys getting buffed. So I know he's forced to trade with one of them, and this way we can stay ahead of the life totals. I'm just going to try to wait for a moment and let you guys catch back up.
Oh yeah, I'll let you know when we're seeing. So yeah, right now we just saw the rogue take it to the face, and
yeah.
So it's 24-25. It's your turn. Obviously, Knife Juggler Voidwalker seems like a good play, but
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely is the best play. It gives us a chance to put the devised ringleader to a 2-1, which the Voidwalker can easily kill. They also can't kill the Voidwalker with something like a deadly poison on their Wicked Knife. They would have to waste a removal spell, like Eviscerate, to kill it completely off of a combo. Um, so that's definitely going to be the best play, and we did get lucky and get the device ringleader. Spoiler alert.
oh, excellent. Yeah,
So
we just caught it. Yeah, that's awesome. So now it's looking like that rogue has a lot of trouble on them because they want to kill both your taunt and the Knife Juggler this turn, and there's not many options to do that for 3 mana.
yeah, the only thing that could be the best situation for them would be if they had Fan of Knives. And in their best situation, that kills my Blood Imp, and it also kills. Oh, actually, they have a better play.
Yeah, if they can use the
No,
poison and then Blade Fury, but I mean Blade Fury is not even common.
I'm seeing it quite often now, actually.
Oh wow.
So yeah, I guess you've already seen that they had Shattered Sun Cleric, which actually made them pretty good to trade, actually. So the next turn, are you guys caught up to my turn yet?
No, we're not caught up.
Probably
Now
not.
we're on your turn. Ooh.
Okay,
So I'm
so I
assuming
drew the
it's
Black
gonna
Knight.
be.
I don't really have a great play here. The only thing I can do is Loot Hoarder. That's the only thing that makes sense. So since that's only 2 mana, I'm going to go ahead and do a life tap to draw.
First,
You
yeah.
always want to draw first if you have that ability. That way, even if you don't play that card, you will still gain some information about what you want to do in the future. Um, so,
Yeah, it'd be nice if that knight takes out that Defias when you play.
yeah, wouldn't that be awesome?
Oh, Leroy, he's always fun to have.
Yeah, so since I drew Leroy there, I actually decided to go on the aggressive side of things. Um, if you notice, with Leroy and Power Overwhelming in my hand, I now have enough damage to do 10 damage to them if they don't have a taunt in my hand. If they do get a taunt, I have Black Knight on turn 6 to get rid of it. And my Knife Juggler didn't hit its mark in being able to kill the devised ringleader. So I just decided to attack to the face to keep pressure on. Usually you're trying to get your opponent to around the 14 life total. And that makes them available for like Leroy Jenkins, Power Overwhelming, and Soulfire. And you're saying, well, you're trying to get your opponent to a certain life total because you think you're going to have 3 cards. How can you be so sure that you're going to get those 3 cards? Well, where you draw so many cards with the cantrips and your draw effect in this deck, you can be pretty sure that you're going to be able to get there. Especially now that I know that I have 2 of those pieces in my hand already.
Now, oddly, this is one of the few cases where, even though it looks like you're behind on the board, seeing your hand, you don't have to feel like you're that behind overall.
Yeah, So basically, you're not really trying to keep position on the board as much as you're just trying to win the game now. And that's the important aspect of this game, where you need to try to figure out where you want to go from each turn, because sometimes it will wildly change. Sometimes I'll think, okay, like right now, I think I'm going to the face. I'm going to try to win the game that way. But then the next turn, you might be worried more about card advantage and stuff like that. For example, if they play two big taunts that you can't get around.
So
So
you
you
think he
have
was
to be very
demonifying
fluid.
that novice engineer just to clear the board so it can't get buffed, basically?
Yep. The other play that I had there was to either draw or Demon Fire. My Blood Imp was the other option that I was strongly considering. Just because putting that at a 3